Tonight, it's a new dawn for the petroleum industry as President Muhammadu Buhari signs the Petroleum Industry Bill into law. Federal government drags resident doctors to industrial court over lingering strike, but the doctors are fighting back, accusing government of insincerity. The police rescue 3 staff members kidnapped from the College of Agriculture in Zamfara State. And mounting fears in Afghanistan as the Taliban tightens control in Kabul, panic at the airport as foreigners and residents flee. Plus, we have sports news, business and international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, Africa Export and Import Bank plans $40 billion fund to boost the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Petroleum industry, as the president today signed the PIB into law, bringing to an end many years of debate. Our President Muhammadu Buhari is assenting to the bill after 6 weeks of its passage by the National Assembly. According to a statement issued by the presidential spokesman, Mr. Femi Adesina, the president is still working from home while observing his quarantine after returning from London at the weekend. He says the ceremonial part of the new legislation will be conducted on Wednesday after the president completes his isolation. The Petroleum Industry Act provides legal, governance, regulatory and fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, the development of host communities and related matters. In the meantime, the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, PANDEF, and NATI have been reacting to the assented bill by the president. While the leader of PANDEF, elder statesman Edwin Clark, says the signing of the bill that provides 3% to the host communities shows that this administration is insensitive to the plight of the host communities. According to him, it clearly shows the disregard for the feelings and concerns of the Niger Delta people. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Extractive Industries Initiative, NATI, says the new law has opened a new phase of wider opportunities in the oil and gas industry. The group says the president has broken new grounds, created new business horizons built on healthy legal frameworks that will push the boundaries of reforms in the sector with realistic optimism for inflow of investments, revenue growth, and job opportunities. Now, for Professor of International Law and Jurisprudence Akin Oyibode, 3% to the host communities is a pittance for those who suffered degradation from the activities of oil exploration. However, he is confident that in future there would be another amendment to the bill. He was speaking on our political program, Politics Today.
I think we have to recognize that what we really have are oil-bearing areas. They are not oil producing, it's just areas which bear oil. And the relationship between the international oil companies and the oil-bearing communities needs to be straightened out. 3% is a pittance for those who suffer the encumbrances of producing oil, the concomitant effect of ravage of the environment, and then the fact of the unpleasantness of heat coming from fires, and also cancer, and in fact birth defects and other things ravaging people inhabiting the area need to be compensated for. We all agree that the oil-bearing areas are the geese that lay the golden eggs. So they have to survive, and they have to be cushioned and defended from the vagaries of oil production. Trying to smuggle in people over whose territory oil pipelines pass, I think it's been clever by half. We must be able to separate issues. It's taken such a long time to have the PIB, so we should not throw away the baby, as people say, with the bath water. So it's a fine place to start to see whether we need further amendments of the PIB going forward in order to make progress.
Still on the PIB, a member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Tajuddin Yusuf, and the Managing Director of Financial Derivatives, Bismarck Ruwane, have also been commenting on the Petroleum Industry Bill signed into law. While Honorable Yusuf believes that the reason the PIB took this long before being signed into law by the President is due to governance and political issues, Mr. Ruwane, on the other hand, says the bill is a welcome development but still requires more fine-tuning.
The law makes the regulation, it institutionalizes the regulation and liberalization of the downstream, which means that subsidies, theoretically speaking, subsidies are gone. If subsidies go away, the amount of government revenue available to be shared and used for the people theoretically is higher. One. Two, the higher the investments in exploration and production in the country, the more the oil revenues that accrue to the country and the more the people. So yes, the revenue profile of Nigeria will change, but how the revenue is spent and the impact of that expenditure on the lives of people is a different kettle of fish. It's completely different. But if you don't have the revenue, then you can't even hold people to account on how they spend it. So this addresses the investment, addresses the revenue. Then the Nigerian people will demand good governance from their leadership. But let me make it clear. The fact that you pass this law today does not mean that people are going to rush over themselves to come and invest. They are going to wait and see that what the law says, what the people, my brother there is saying about what the lawmakers are saying, and what the actions of Nigerians are.
Federal government controlling the business as of now to give unnecessary opportunity to those who can take unchecked resources from the Federation account. That is exactly what that frontline exploration will do. And 30% to me is huge. It presents certain realities about the Nigerian political situation, that there is some undertone privileges given to certain sections of the country to get what they want, because this version is actually what certain section of the country wanted. And that is what have kept the law in limbo for now. So those who feel that they have lost out will continue to agitate and they will not be comfortable with this law. I feel as a lawmaker that in as much that there's no perfect law anywhere, but if there's a sense of equity, there should be a sense that everybody feels that their interest is adequately taken care of. Nothing kept the PIB this long than politics. Regionalism, ethnic sentiment, and what have you. And that is the bane of Nigerian political development and economic development.
As you already heard, the journey to the passage of the PIB was not an easy one. On the one hand, the oil-producing communities was eager to see it passed, fulfilling their aspiration. The industry watchers and those in authority also engaged one another almost in an endless debate. In our background report, we examined the tortuous journey to the PIB law.
Motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it.
For many years, the Petroleum Industry Bill, or PIB, has generated a lot of contentious debates in the Senate.
To establish good governance, competitiveness, global best practices, and ease of doing business in the Nigerian oil and gas industry.
House of Representatives.
Several members have come and said because of the importance they needed to digest and prepare for full debate, as they were not fully aware that it was coming up this morning.
And in any circle, the issue is understood.
How will government invest in E&P? It is by meeting up their JV cash calls. It is by trying as much as possible to rejig and let us have the PIB passed in order to create the right framework for investment.
The subject gained legendary status in Nigeria's economic and political conversation, such that the last 20 years had witnessed multiple attempts by government to pass an all-encompassing bill. But it appeared the scope and complexity of the process stifled the efforts. The objective of the Petroleum Industry Bill has always been to regulate the oil sector, such that it leaves no room for corruption, nepotism in the industry, and environmental degradation. With crude oil dominating Nigeria's economy, accounting for around 90% of export earnings, and Nigeria holding the record of having the largest oil and gas reserves in sub-Saharan Africa, the industry was clogged with questionable licensing deals, multiple middlemen, a lack of refining capacity, and graft in the system. In spite of its vast potential, one of the most contentious areas in negotiating the bill has been the amount of money companies pay to local communities, who push for a share of 10% of regional oil wealth from production, but after much ado in the National Assembly, 3% was approved.
The forum, however, rejects in very strong terms the proposed 3% for host community and supports 5% share of the oil revenue to the host communities as recommended by the House of Representatives.
So what changes are expected when the bill is eventually passed by a willing government?
I've heard a lot of noise about NNPC being scrapped, but that is not envisaged by the bill at all. We have said that NNPC will be commercialized. But if we are talking about transforming the industry, the only new thing that we are introducing is the development of the midstream. That is the pipeline sector, that sector between the upstream and the downstream.
Its package includes, but not limited to, the selling of shares in the reformed NNPC, the replacement of regulatory bodies, and the reduction and streamlining of royalties. The bill is also expected to provide a conducive environment for international and indigenous companies to thrive and to protect the environment of host communities and drive economic diversification in Nigeria. After all, what the government wants to ultimately achieve is transparency, which the bill promises.
In part two, after the break, we'll have more on the petroleum industry bill signed into law, and the Professor of Energy Economics, Wumi Iledare, will join us to talk more on the issue. Plus, the federal government drags the National Association of Resident Doctors to the industrial court. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the News at 10, broadcasting live from Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. It's a new dawn for the petroleum industry as President Muhammadu Buhari signs the petroleum industry bill into law. Federal government drags resident doctors to industrial court over lingering strike, but doctors are fighting back, accusing government of insincerity. Police rescue 3 staff members kidnapped from the College of Agriculture in Zamfara State. And mounting fears in Afghanistan as the Taliban tightens control in Kabul. Panic at the airport as foreigners and residents flee. Indeed, the president has finally signed the petroleum industry bill. A notable gesture, you may say. But does that settle all the issues bedeviling the sector? Right about now, I'm being joined by Professor Wumi Iledare, a professor of energy economics and a member of the technical advisory team to the National Assembly on the petroleum industry bill. Professor, thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's get into it. Being a member of the technical advisory team from 2015 to 2021 to the National Assembly on the PIB, how do you see this feat achieved today through the signing of the bill into law by the president?
Well, thank you again. I think it's laudable and commendable, and I think euphoric celebration of passing the bill is in order. If you allow me, let me quickly remember 2 giants. I call them Iroko trees, who participated in formulating the policy and even the original bill in 2008. They are both late now, but I'm sure they are looking from above. One is Dr. Lukman Iwano, who actually initiated the first bill in 2008. The second person is Dr. Emmanuel Lebuga, who was part of the OIGC and the policy development that led to this bill. So this is commendable. It is also not least Nigeria can finally take the monkey off their back, that the process we began in 2000 has come to fruition. So the presidency is congratulated for claiming the ownership of the bill, and also the National Assembly, the Ninth National Assembly, who came through. Yes, we were part of the advisory team since 2015, but let me say that we commend and we congratulate ourselves for being part of what we are all experiencing today. Yes, right. I had my other commentators, if I just finished. I will not in any way sacrifice a good bill for a perfect bill. This is laudable, even despite the imperfection. I think it's something to really jubilate about.
Now, Professor, let's quickly talk about the communities. The host communities have already rejected the 3% offered them, the 3% fund offered them. What could possibly be the backlash now following the fact that this has now come to stay with the signing of this bill?
Well, I think I can understand the fear and the fact that the money is not enough for the type of development that they're expecting. But this is a federation, and this is a political system, and it is actually a compromising bill. No political bill can ever be perfect. But let me quickly add that it's not that there are no better ways to fund this, but starting with this is commendable in my opinion because it is innovative. I'm not saying it is enough, but it's innovative, and it's actually far better than 10% equity that the community is asking. Because when you have an equity in a business, you can only get dividend if profit is declared at the end of every accounting period. And let me quickly douse the fear. If you really look at the sources of funding, you have other sources apart from this 3%. And those other sources can be easily explored, even by the community. One, you can get your legislators, if I may finish, to derive some percentage of 13% fund and put it in this host community. You could also ask for a portion of NDDC commission levy to be part of this community. And you can always get grant from NCDMB. So let's just look at this 3% as a starting point in the political system that requires compromise.
Professor Wumi Ledare, thank you so much for your thoughts on the News at 10. We do appreciate you.
Thank you for your time. Sorry about the internet connection.
Let's move on to Zamfara State, where 3 members of staff of the College of Agriculture abducted during an attack on the school have now been freed by the police. Commissioner of Police Ayuba Elkanah informed the media that police operatives rescued the victims while combing the surrounding areas. They have been debriefed and later taken to the hospital for clinical examination. It's another opportunity for Nigerians as the federal government flags off the second phase of the COVID-19 vaccination. This is coming months after the conclusion of the first phase, which was adjudged one of the best in the world by the WHO, that's the World Health Organization. This phase will target health workers, vulnerable groups, and hard-to-reach communities in the country. Members of the Presidential Steering Committee urged leaders to intensify mobilization efforts to ensure 100% utilization of available vaccines, particularly to eligible persons in the state and local government areas.
Vaccines have a long trajectory from development to acquisition, which our colleagues at MPACD and all our partners have supported us with. And then the regulatory process, and we'll hear from DG NAFDAC in a few minutes. But the next step of this will depend on healthcare workers. The distribution and making these vaccines available to the last mile will depend on an incredible group of Nigerians that have been working hard for the last 18 months to deliver vaccines, to test people, to do contact tracing, to treat individuals. Treatment centers are filling up again. Healthcare workers are working through the night, every day, making sure they serve Nigerians. So as we celebrate the acquisition of these vaccines today and begin the second phase of distribution, I'd like to acknowledge all the healthcare workers across our country that have been working so hard in this response and will continue working hard, and ask Nigerians please to keep supporting them as they deliver on these vaccines. As we start queuing up from tomorrow to get vaccinated, please be patient. Be patient with our colleagues, line up carefully, they will get to everyone. Across every state in Nigeria, healthcare workers are preparing as we speak to deliver these vaccines to Nigerians.
Now to labour issues, the Minister of Labour and Employment has approached the industrial court for adjudication in the trade dispute between the federal government and the National Association of Resident Doctors. The federal government is asking the court to order the resident doctors who have been on strike in the last 2 weeks to return to their duty posts as reconciliation is ongoing. Meanwhile, the Association of Resident Doctors vowed to continue the industrial action until their demands are met. Speaking at a news conference in Abuja, the president of the association blames the government for the untold hardship which the strike has brought upon citizens who are seeking medical care in public hospitals in the last 2 weeks. The president also appeals to the public for understanding, insisting that it's dangerous for a doctor whose salaries have not been paid to handle patients in the hospitals. The industrial court in Abuja has adjourned ruling on the matter till September the 15th. Meanwhile, the resident doctors are not backing down yet as the leadership accuses government of insincerity in the handling of their demands. The president of the union says the resident doctors are not in a hurry to go back to work.
I want to deeply, on behalf of all resident doctors in Nigeria, thank you wholeheartedly for the show of love and empathy towards our cause. We are not unaware of the sufferings you all are going through due to government insincerity of purpose. It is 5 years and 11 months since we signed the Memorandum of Terms of Settlement, yet government reneged. As we are aware today, the government sued us to the National Industrial Court for adjudication. As a law-abiding association, we were in court as summoned, but the Minister of Labour was absent, and only the Minister of Health were present. The case was adjourned to 15th of September 2021. We once again appeal to Nigerians to bear with us because a hungry doctor is a dangerous doctor. We are hopeful the government shall do the needful as it pertains to the welfare of our members, thus curbing the ugly incidents of brain drain.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Police High Command parades suspected armed smugglers and cybercrime operators. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We've just received reports that the Nigerian Governors Forum are having a meeting in Jos, the Plateau State capital. We don't have details of the meeting as of yet, but we will be tracking the meeting as it goes on. But in the meantime, the Nigerian police is not taking it easy with criminals and armed smugglers. Today, the High Command in Abuja paraded several people suspected to be smugglers of arms within the country and across the borders.
These are the latest exhibits displayed by the Nigeria Police Force as part of its effort to reduce the rate of crime in the country. 39 suspects are paraded for offences bordering on arms smuggling, cybercrime, kidnappings, car theft, amongst others.
The suspect in this case?
One of the suspects, Ntui Lambert, whose father is from Cross River State and mother from Cameroon, was arrested with 38 wraps of improvised explosive devices.
I was arrested in possession of dynamite, explosive, and live ammunition of AK-47 with a Turaya phone.
Another suspect, Joseph Okala, who is a native of Agatu in Benue State, was arrested in possession of 2 rocket-propelled grenade launchers, while another suspect, Yaya Zakari, specializes in mobile phones theft, which he uses to defraud his victims of their funds.
It's one boy from Nagatu, so he come here. So he went and searched for my number. Then he now come to Makodi. As of, I should try, as our side there is not good, I should try. They are looking for AK-47. I say, hey, they think go hard here. Oh, there's no problem. So far as I should be searching, nobody will search for you.
I used to reset any SIM that has alert, bank alert. I will reset it and remove the money inside. We use new SIMs and old SIMs. You reset it and do what? I remove the money that is in your bank account.
The force public relations officer, Mr. Frank Mba, was supported during the parade by the commander of the Special Tactical Squad, Mr. Kolo Yusuf, and the new commander of the Inspector General of Police Intelligence Response Team, Mr. Tunji Disu, insists that the police will not relent in tracking those behind the violence in Jos, Plateau State.
We believe that with our boots on ground and our A-wing up there in the air, we will be able to provide sufficient confidence for the people of Jos. We will also be able to cover the entire field and the entire ground, both on ground and on air.
The police plan to charge these suspects to court as soon as possible, while appealing to Nigerians to continue to provide useful information to the force for effective fight against crime in the country.
And for more from the nation's capital of Abuja, Linda Kigbe is standing by. Over to you, Linda.
Hello, Ayotunde. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Muhammad, has administered the oath of office on the newly appointed Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory, Justice Yusuf Baba, and 5 Qadis of the FCT Sharia Court of Appeal. Speaking at the event which happened at the Supreme Court in Abuja, the Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Tanko Muhammad, urges the newly sworn-in judges to be impartial and rise above any primordial sentiment in the discharge of their duties. He admonishes the judges to conduct their affairs within the ambit of the law and the oath of office that was administered on them.
Throughout your tenure as the head of the FCT judiciary and Qadis of the FCT Sharia Court of Appeal, you must endeavor to be impartial, fair to all, and apply justice and equity in all your undertakings. You are expected to conduct your affairs within the ambit of the law and the oath that has just been administered on you. Anything to the contrary will not place you on the right side of history. You must resolutely rise and operate above every primordial sentiment that might blight your tenures. Respect yourselves, respect the persons you work with, and stand always by the truth. If you do so, God is there to guide you, God is there to protect you. And I am sure Sakai will be the starting point of your journey.
The Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, is disclosing that the country's deficit is on a decline. Speaking at a meeting with the House of Representatives Committee on Finance to discuss the 2022 to 2024 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, MTEF, Mrs. Ahmed says the fiscal deficit in 2021 is 4.891 trillion naira, which is slightly higher than what is projected for 2022. The finance minister says overall fiscal risks are elevated for Nigeria because of persistent weaknesses in the economy and slower than expected recovery. Some of the key assumptions in the 2022 to 2024 MTEF and FSP include benchmark price of crude is set at $57 for 2022 and 2023 and $55 for 2024. The exchange rate is 410 naira 15 kobo to $1. And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Linda. Still to come on the news at 10, U.S. President Joe Biden stands by decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan, insisting it was the right thing to do. Please join us again. Welcome back. Teniola Shabola is already standing by with business news. Teniola.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Ayo. Welcome to Business News. The African Export and Import Bank is planning a $40 billion fund to support the African Continental Free Trade Agreement for the next 4 years. Other interventions by the bank include the $300 million Transit Guarantee Scheme, which aims to facilitate the movement of goods and services within the African region. The manager in charge of intra-African trade at Afrexim Bank, Temwa Gondwe, is hopeful that the initiative by both bodies will increase the continent's market potentials. The Bank of Industry has launched an information and communication technology hub in Kaduna State as part of efforts to tackle youth unemployment in the country. The technology hub is part of the bank's corporate social responsibility initiative to promote skills development, youth entrepreneurship and job creation in new technology and innovations. Speaking at the event, the chairman of the bank, Ali Udiko, says embracing technology and infusing it into business processes will make organizations and the country more competitive, adding that the technology industry can be a major pillar of a diversified economy.
The Bank of Industry officially launches the Vertebra Tech Hub to the public in Kaduna State as part of its corporate social responsibility initiative to promote skills development, youth entrepreneurship and job creation. Kada Hive is a technology and innovation center in the state, and the idea of the hub, which is sponsored by the Bank of Industry, is to improve technology adoption across the state. The hub is commissioned by the Kaduna State Deputy Governor, Dr. Hadiza Balarabe. He commends the Bank of Industry for supporting the state's industrial and technological sectors with both funding and skills.
In this state, we believe that investing on the youth in technology is the surest path to creating a safer and more prosperous future.
The chairman of Bank of Industry, Ali Udiko, says the overall objective is to ensure that the bank's corporate social responsibility investment generate better benefits for the country, stressing that a hub like this one gives young people the opportunity to create legitimate wealth.
The bank-sponsored hub is a platform for young people of Kaduna State to channel their ingenuity, creativity, and passion to productive and impactful ends rather than social vices.
According to the managing director of Vertebra, the technical partner of Bank of Industry, Kada Hive is set up in recognition of the ingenuity and creativity of young people in the country. And this is also for the need to channel them to more productive and impactful end.
This is actually the 5th hub that we are setting up with the Bank of Industry.
We've trained over 3,000 youths, introducing them to STEM and the opportunities that technology has for them.
This is about youth, it's about technology, and this is about employment generation in terms of having people who can pursue their own dreams and ideas in technology.
The BOI says it plans to build the Nigerian startup ecosystem as it believes that the technology startups are becoming major economic value creators in the 21st century. It also hopes that this trend will accelerate, especially as artificial intelligence, robotics, and many others become part of everyday life.
Time to check in on the stock market now. Laddie Williams has the details.
And it's the first trading day of the week, and the market is taking 0.04% off its overall gain of last week, Friday, at the close of trading. Market value dropped about 9 billion naira from the total value of listed equities, and this has brought the bear back to the floor of the NGX on the first trading day. On the activity chart now, deals are up at over 3,000. Volume and value dipped even further compared to Friday's trading session. Analysts say it's mostly profit-taking. Let's see how the counters fared today. Banking was down 0.65%. Consumer goods up 0.02%. Meanwhile, industrial is down 0.09%, as well as oil and gas down 0.27%. MRS led the gainers counter up 11.90%, closing at 13 naira 85 kobo, while ABC Transport led the losers counter down 8.33%. Well, the first trading day of the week. Let's see how the week goes. And that's the stock market report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
Thanks a lot, Laddie. In the U.S., the Dow and the S&P 500 hit fresh record closes ahead of major retail earnings reports this week. Let's take a look at the closing numbers for global figures. It's back to Ayo now for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Many thanks, Daniel. U.S. President Joe Biden has once again stood by his decision to withdraw troops in Afghanistan despite the Taliban takeover over the last 24 hours, saying he was the fourth American president facing this war and wouldn't pass it on to a fifth. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The Taliban have declared that the war in Afghanistan is over after taking control of the presidential palace in Kabul. It has taken the group just over a week to seize control of the country after a lightning offensive which forced the government to collapse and President Ashraf Ghani to flee. There were shocking scenes at the airport in Kabul as citizens rushed to the terminal in an attempt to escape. And total chaos on the runways. Desperate Afghans hanging on the landing gear of a US aircraft as it tried to take off. Dozens of helicopters have been flying over Kabul as the international community rushed to evacuate embassy staff and citizens. Many Afghans fear a brutal return to the regime of the 1990s, with public executions and girls being banned from school. The UN has urged the group to exercise restraint. Hospitals in Haiti have become overwhelmed as they treat thousands of people injured in an earthquake that has left at least 1,297 dead. Saturday's 7.2 magnitude earthquake has also left at least 5,700 people injured in the Caribbean nation. More than 13,000 homes have been destroyed, suggesting that the number of dead could rise further. Footage on social media showed residents desperately trying to pull victims from ruined buildings. At least 70 people have been killed as emergency workers continue to search for 47 others missing after flash floods swept through the Turkish Black Sea provinces. The floods brought chaos as torrents of water destroyed buildings and bridges. Shocking footage shows dozens of cars and debris swept along streets. More than 2,000 people have been evacuated from affected areas. 4 Palestinians have been killed in clashes during an Israeli raid to arrest a suspect in the occupied West Bank. The incident occurred in the city of Jenin, where Israeli special forces, disguised as Palestinians, came under heavy fire from a large number of attackers while on a mission to detain a militant. A Palestinian news agency said 4 men were killed and that a 5th was seriously wounded. Malaysia's Prime Minister and his cabinet have resigned after just 17 months in power amid infighting within his coalition and a resurgent wave of COVID-19. In a televised address, Muhyiddin Yassin said he had decided to step down because he had lost his majority in parliament and that he hoped that a new government would be formed soon. However, the palace said King Al Sultan Abdullah did not believe an election should go ahead due to the coronavirus. The president of the Democratic Republic of Congo has authorized US special forces to help the Congolese army battle an armed group linked to ISIS. The Allied Democratic Forces, which the United States had deemed a terrorist group, is considered the deadliest of dozens of armed militias that roam eastern DCR. The US forces will boost the Congolese army's fight against ADF in the national parks of Virunga and Garamba. The mission will last several weeks. Zambia's outgoing president Edgar Lungu has conceded defeat in the presidential election.
I want to thank you, Zambian people, for giving me a great opportunity to be your president. I will forever cherish and appreciate that authority you vested in me.
Mr. Lungu had earlier hinted that he would challenge the results of the election after accusing the opposition of fraud. Zambian opposition leader Hakenday Hichalema has been declared the winner of last week's contested presidential election. It was Mr. Hichalema's 6th attempt at the presidency, and he won by a landslide. And finally, a herd of wandering elephants in China have reached the final leg of what has become a world-famous journey home. For the past 17 months, after straying hundreds of kilometers from their nature reserve, the animals are just days from reaching their destination. More than 25,000 security staff tracked and fed the elephants on their epic journey, while more than 150,000 people were evacuated along the migration route. Even now, experts remain baffled by their behavior, but some believe the elephants left to find more food. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel studios in Lagos.
Welcome to Sports News. The Tokyo Paralympics organizers have confirmed that the Games will take place generally without spectators, as the government is set to prolong COVID-19 emergency measures in the capital and other cities that will run the Games. Tokyo 2020 President Shiko Hashimoto has apologized for the move earlier today following talks between government officials, Tokyo organizers and Paralympic representatives, calling on people to watch the Games at home and avoid attending road events. Now, the draw for the rescheduled Africa Cup of Nations will take place in Yaoundé, Cameroon on Tuesday, with 3-time African champions, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, and 23 other African teams set to know their group opponents at continent's biggest football tournament. The 3-time champions, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, have been seated in Pot 1 alongside host Cameroon, reigning champions Algeria, the Teranga Lions of Senegal, who are currently the #1 ranked team on the continent, Tunisia and Morocco. That's it on Sports News. Back to you, Ayi.
Many thanks, Kaide. And the main news again. The Petroleum Industry Bill, the PIB, has been signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari, bringing to an end years of debate and uncertainty. The president will be conducting a ceremonial part of the legislation on Wednesday after he completes his isolation. And that's the news at 10 at this time. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. From all of us here, it's good night and stay safe.